everyone and welcome to Scholarship Tracks live Q&A session. Today we have Shiva Sah on board with us. He is doing MDes from IIT Guwahati and is also a TEDx speaker. Welcome sir on board with us.
Thank you, Shankla, for the
Hi.
introduction. I'm really glad that I could be a part of Scholarship Track here. So,
All right.
yeah, so without any wasting any further time, shall we start with the deck?
Yeah. So Shiva sir will move now onwards and I'll move. Just give me a minute.
Awesome. I hope my screen is visible to all. So, yes, let's talk about UX. It's one of the most trending term in the decade. I've seen people mostly relating this term with screens, with apps, with websites, and interfaces. The question is, does it really restrict to that? Well, most of the youngsters, whether they are from UX design enthusiasts or young professional, think so. So I believe it is imperative for us to understand the term before we switch to this domain. So a little bit about myself. Thanks to Shankla, she already described me very well. And I am an architect who turned UX designer, and I'm pursuing my master's from IIT Guwahati. I also happen to give a TEDx talk on uh, specular design in the past. So let's not make it a monotonous formal session. I would love if you could also exchange our ideas. So why don't we all scan this QR code and interact in the upcoming slides? It should be fun. So I'll wait for 30 seconds here so that you can scan this. Your your responses will be completely anonymous, so you do not need to shy away. Please scan this and then let's have some interaction. All right, I guess most of you have already scanned this. So let's move ahead. So we all have come across job postings asking for UX designer slash UX UI designer slash graphic designer slash web designers and whatnot. There are multiple definitions of user experience available on the internet. Now, internet is a democracy. Now, everyone has the right to share what they believe. And to be honest, you do not have to agree with all of them. Here are some of the definitions of UX that I found interesting. So the first one, John Amir Abbasi, who is a UX researcher at Facebook, he says, user experience design is an approach to design that takes the user into account. Jason Ogle, the founder and host of User Defenders podcast, he says UX design is about solving problems through empathy. Martin Redding says user experience design is the fulfillment of brand's promise. So if you look closely, the definitions aren't restricted to a particular domain like web or product. Instead, it gives an overview of UX. So of all the definitions available, this is the one I mostly adhere to. This definition was given by Don Norman. So Don Norman is a cognitive scientist who joined the team Apple in nearly early 90s as a user experience architect, making him the first person to have UX in his job title. He came up with the term user experience design as a way of encompassing all the UX is. According to him, user experience encompasses all aspects of end users' interactions with the company, its services, and its products. This is how a UX expert, Dan Willis, looks at it. UX is a vast umbrella that encompasses various domains of design. So nowhere in this image does it imply that UX is about products or websites or apps. It implies to me that UX is about solving problems. Furthermore, it also implies that what we are after is something that users are drawn to, something they find easy to use, and something that they understand. Now let's go back in time to 2 decades from now. Do you remember how the first mobile phones in your family looked like? Look at the image for reference. Tiny screens, probably black and white, alphanumeric keypads, thick body, right? Do you recall them? So let's have some interaction here. So I want you to recollect those times, retrospect that you or someone in your family got a new phone. We did not have online shopping at that period. So once you got your phone from the store, you come back home and unbox it. Now, what was the first thing that you used to do once you unboxed your phone? So let's have the answer either on Slido or on the chat. Let's see. So let me repeat the question. What was the first thing that you used to do once you unboxed your phones? I'll wait for some another seconds. Let's see. Okay, so I did not get any answer from here. So let me answer that for you. We charged the phones, and that too for hours. The phone would remain switched off when you watched its battery to charge from 0 to 100%. Such a displeasure, right? You want to experience your brand new phone, but you got to charge it first. All your excitement starts to drain down. While most of the phone companies ignored this, someone noticed this. Do you have any guesses? Well, yeah, that's Steve Jobs. He not only noticed it, rather wanted to change this into his products. So typically when a product has a hard drive with it, companies run it for about 30 minutes in the factory to make sure that the hard drive works for years. What Apple did instead was they ran the product for 2 hours. Why? First of all, they could make a higher quality products. It was easy to test, and most importantly, the battery came out fully charged right out of the box, ready to use. So the customers could use the product with that excitement that they had when they bought the product. Later, this was noticed by the rest of the companies. As a result, all the digital products that we get today in the market are charged and are ready to use as soon as they are unboxed. Now let's take a break from the serious talk and hear to some jokes by Kenny Sebastian.
Sorry to interrupt, Shiva. Your voice, like the voice of the video, is not audible.
Is it not? Okay,
No.
well, that's sad. Should I share the screen again?
I guess you should.
All right, so anyway, I'll skip it. Here in this video, he makes jokes about middle class family who goes to a restaurant, and whenever they generally what do they order in general? So whenever there's some leftovers, we generally pack it up and bring back home, right? So he notices this experience of the middle class users. So this is the art of noticing. We all have faced situations like this, right? It's very relatable. However, we do not tend to notice it. He, as a stand-up comedian, noticed this and made an act out of it. Our job as a designer are a step ahead of this. We should notice this as such usability issues and then also solve it. There are multiple usability issues around us, but somehow we don't tend to notice them. Why? Well, the term is called habituation. Habituation means the diminishing of an innate response to frequently repeated stimulus. Now let's take some example and understand this. Remember the first time you were driving a car, your hands were firmly situated on the steering wheel and the gear. Your eyes continuously move between the windshield and the rear view mirrors, driving around all tensed, noticing each object and person in front of the vehicle. But slowly you got habituated to this. Now you drive a car with a single hand. You play music while driving. You talk to people within the car because you are now habituated to the situation of driving the car. Let's take another example, which is a comparatively a simpler one. When you started using the computer for the first time, we noticed every little detail, right? So to type a sentence, we had to search for the alphabet keys on the keyboard. The hand-eye coordination while using the mouse was not smooth. But now we do not even notice this. You can type a paragraph without even looking at your keyboard. So this is because of the habituation. We have been habituated to such situations, and the brain has adapted to all this. Now let's take another example where we can interact. So awesome. So now that we understood the art of noticing, let's do an exercise to refreshen our minds. We all have been to hospitals, right? Now imagine you were approached by a major healthcare chain in India and were asked to improve the experience of their patients. What would you do? Let's see if I get some answers this time. Okay, no answers again. So let's say, well, back in time, a major healthcare chain in the US approached IDEO for similar case. They requested IDEO to visualize the experience of patients in hospitals and then to design to enhance their experience. They expected some trendy graphs or flowcharts in the first meeting. Instead, what they saw from the design team was a video, an approximately 7-minute long time-lapse video of the ceiling of their hospital. Sometimes a head or two popped up in the video. They were shocked because this was completely different to what they had expected. So the design team, what they did was they admitted a member of their organization as a patient in the hospital. The person recorded everything he saw in the hospital, which is why that video mostly contained the ceiling of the hospital. After realizing the problem, they did little changes in the hospital that made a lot of difference. So the first solution that they came up with was this. The patients were often moved from one ward to the other for the checkups or tests. The patients have a shabby experience of seeing the ceiling and not knowing who is carrying the stretcher. So they installed mirror towards the bottom part of the stretcher where the patients kept their legs. Now the patients could see the face of the doctor or nurses who carried them around and have conversations, making the experience less awful. And when they noticed that the patients stare at the ceiling most of the times in hospital, the nurse decorated the ceilings of the wards. Though this need not be the best design solution, but definitely improve the experience of the patients. The doors of the wards mostly remained open so that it could be easily accessed by the doctors and the nurses. So the flooring of the wards was changed. This evoked the sense of belongingness of the ward among the patients, separating the public space with the private space. And the last solution that they came up with was this. The wall of the ward towards the legs of the patients was converted into a huge board. The relatives and friends of the patients left positive message for the patients to see during this time. While they spent their time in the hospital, they looked at this wall and felt positive. So these changes are not big; they're very minute. They're very minute modification in the environment, but this made huge impact in the lives of the patients who were admitted in this hospital. So instead of looking for huge design solutions, we should sometimes look at the problem very closely. Sometimes even the smallest change creates huge impacts. Let's see another example. Well, in another story, Malcolm McLean was traveling from a country to the other. He got his belongings packed in the boxes. He had to travel in ship, so he asked his helpers to shift the boxes of the ships while he waited there. He wondered what took them so long. So he came out and observed. He saw that the helpers had to load one box at a time to the ship, which makes the process very slow. As a designer, he later invented a shipping container, so which helped to make the process faster, and you could load a lot of things together in the ship. Shall we do another exercise, or shall we skip it? So, so there's a bank called Umqua Bank. So when the Umqua Bank had to start, they had a huge competitor in the market. All the other banks were very efficient and very quick. Now, because they did not lack any capital. Now, Umpqua did not have the capital to match their efficiency. So what they did instead was focused on user experience. They took inspiration from coffee shops instead and make the banks look like a coffee lounge. So instead of focusing on being fast, they were slow banks, but they increased the experience of the users even in that slow experience. The customers walked into the bank, sat on the sofas, sipped their coffee, and read newspapers while the transactions were being processed by the employees of the bank. Amazing, right? Even if in the low budget, they could create an experience for the customers that was very unique at that period. Now, most of the banks are following this trend. Even in India, we see many banking chains where they are following this model. So that's all about the tales of UX. Now, I would want to share another video, but I don't think it's possible uh, because it's not audible to you guys. I don't know. Let me know if you can hear this video.
No, it isn't audible. I'm so sorry.
Let me turn on the uh, caption so that maybe you can just see it at least. So that's how UX is defined by Don Norman, the person who himself coined the term. So that is it from my side. That all I had to share about UX as an introduction, which is beyond screens and which is beyond apps and websites that is commonly seen as. So if you have any questions, please shoot them in the chat box. I'm here to answer.
Okay, so we'll take up the questions from the audience. Audience, you can ask your questions in the comment section, and sure, I will be very happy to answer them. Then last 30 seconds, if we don't have any questions.
All right.
I think that's it then. Thank you so for joining us today. And it was an informative session, and it is going to remain on the YouTube, so people can watch it later even. I see that
Awesome.
there were less number of people who were interactive. Also, you can
It's
connect
okay.
him on LinkedIn, I guess, if you have any further doubts. Anything you would like to say to the audience?
No, I think that is it. If anyone has any further questions, they can connect to me. I shared my URLs. Even if it's there in the YouTube later, they can connect to me anytime. So it was a lovely experience sharing this part of UX, which is generally not seen by the people. So yeah, and thank you, Shankla, for this amazing platform that I could connect with people who are interested in UX.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone.